Good afternoon to all of you. Okay, please allow us to record the whole session, and then please mute your microphone, and then hopefully your video because of some connection issue. But when you have some issues or question, then please unmute yourself, and then of course show yourself please. Okay, so good afternoon and good evening for some of you. Mr. Alfonso, today's speaker, it's a good midnight time for you, right? Okay,
yes,
thank you so much for attending this online kickoff meeting, kickoff our online workshop in English. My name is Hikari Ishido, Professor of International Economics at Chiba University, Japan. So I look like this to just briefly remove my mask. But because of the presence of my colleagues in the same room, I'd like to do this, of course. This is the compliance thing. And then let me just share today's agenda just briefly. So this one, as you can see in the PowerPoint slide, okay. The title of today's workshop is Global Fair Society After COVID-19, this global pandemic, and then emerging agendas we put, organized by our Chiba University. Then the background, very briefly, Chiba University has launched several flagship research programs for the next 3 to 5 years. And one of them, which is including this program, is New Frontiers of Studies on Global Fair Society, Values and Public Vision in the Age After COVID-19, which is headed by my colleague, Professor Jiro Mizushima. And in the age of globalization, we witness growing need to ensure that people from all cultures and countries and backgrounds are treated fairly. But how can we achieve this? So this is a kickoff online workshop discussing emerging agendas in a concrete manner, especially tailored after the outbreak of COVID-19. So and then today's schedule is like this. As you can see in the URL version, I'm sure you have access to the URL version. So this is today's agenda, 2.5 hours. And then we will have 3 speakers and 2 discussants, as you see. I'd like to introduce each one of them later, very soon. Okay, so this is today's agenda. So without talking too much more, I'd like to pass on to my colleague and then head of this research program, Professor Jiro Mizushima. So, Professor Mizushima, please.
Hi. Hello, everybody. Konnichiwa. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Jiro Mizushima, Director of the Research Program of Chiba University on Global Fair Society. Since 2016, we have engaged in this Fair Society program almost 6 years, but today's kickoff workshop is a new start. Because this year, thanks to the efforts and achievement of our research members, our project was chosen as one of the prominent programs supported by the International Institute of Advanced Studies of Chiba University. I think this is a great honor for all of us, and it is our duty that we should deepen our research more than ever and publish more to reach the broad public. This academic activity goes, of course, beyond the national border. And actually, today's 3 presentators, 2 come from China and 1 from Mexico, the opposite side of the globe. Today, no Japanese presentators, only Japanese commentators. In this sense, this is truly a global academic workshop, I think. Anyway, as a political scientist, I see many unfair phenomena and divisions in the world, which manifest itself by the rise of populist movements against the established order. In the French presidential elections last month, these divisions became more clearly because the populist candidate got more than 40% of the total votes. It is interesting to see that the newly elected President Macron mentioned about fair society in the speech just after the victory. He emphasized the importance of fairer society, société produced. I suppose that Macron recognizes that fairness is urgently needed to tackle the serious divisions of the society. In this way, fairness and fair society is a key concept for the world in the post-pandemic era. Thank you. And especially for the three speakers. So we are going to the next session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Mizushima. So let us move on to the presentation session. The first speaker for today is Dr. Xiang from Chiba University. She is one of my colleagues. And then her presentation topic is Thriving in a Post-Pandemic World, Food Security and the Need for Policy Coordination. Okay, so Dr. Xiang, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your introduction. Just give me a minute. So I'll share the screen. Can you see the screen? Is everything okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, I'd like to say thank you so much at first for inviting me to this wonderful fair research project. I am Xiang, a faculty member at Chiba University. Well, it's my pleasure to make a presentation about this topic today. Okay. So in the next 15 minutes or so, or follow this schedule to talk about today's topics. The first part of the talk will be on the background stories. So I will provide you some information about agriculture and discuss why it's important to focus on agricultural issues. So then I'll provide you some information about the current situation and global challenges. So facts such as the structure of global food production, risks surrounding agricultural management, and possible impacts will be covered in this section. In addition, issues in Japan will also be mentioned. The third part of the talk will be on the need of policy coordination. Okay, let me show you some background information at first. So why do we need to care about agricultural sectors? So do relevant studies have any implication for us in our society? The answer is yes. So agricultural sector not only provides us foods and feed crops, but also energy source. So one of the examples is bioethanol, which can be produced from corn. So what about implications? In general, our survival relies on sustainable supply of foods. The truth is that you can live without cars for a week, but you cannot survive without foods. So moreover, at the current technology level, there are no available stuff that can substitute for agricultural products. So which means we must eat every day. As a result, sustainable supply of foods become a prerequisite or the foundation of our social development. So in addition to these facts, we might need to recognize that foods are special commodity. So in some scenario, they can become political weapons. So traditionally, people perceive weapons to be things like guns, but the fact is that foods can change their identity and become weapons. Since food or resources are not unlimited, so they can become powerful weapons when countries negotiate with each other. So in some scenario, so they can change the comparative advantage between country A and country B. So as I mentioned earlier, so food are not unlimited. If we check the special distribution of our global foods production, we can easily notice that countries around the world can only be grouped to be either net exporter or net importer. This slide illustrates the cases of corn. So the figure from the left to the right show the production, export, and imports of corn. So the darker green, the color shows the higher amount of its production, export, and imports. So for corn, the share of production amount in the US and China in general account for over 50% of total amount of global corn productions. However, only a few countries such as UK, so Brazil, Russia have capability to export corn to other countries. For other type of crop, such as the case of wheat, the similar phenomenon can be observed. This slide shows the cases of wheat. So if we look at the export figure in the middle part, so we can again find that only a few numbers of countries such as Russia and Ukraine have capacity to export wheat. So this figure shows the cases of rice. So India, in this case, becomes a key exporter. So what about developed countries? Can all of them produce enough food for themselves? The figure illustrates. Yes. Are there any problems?
Yeah.
Okay. Is everything okay?
Yeah, now it's okay. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. So if there are any problem, please let me know. Thank you so much. So, back to the contents of the slide. So what about developed countries? So can all of them produce enough food for themselves? The figure illustrates only a few countries like Canada, Australia, US, and France have self-sufficiency rate exceeding 100%. So other countries like Germany, Italy, and Japan have self-sufficiency rate lower than 100%. So what do these numbers imply? They indicate that only a few number of countries have capability to export extra amount of foods. So when food crisis occurs, the country who relies on food imports will be significantly impacted. In the global markets, the general rule is that who pays the higher price will get what she or he wants at first. Although money is almighty in many situations, it may not work when food becomes shortage. So when food crisis occurs, so most countries quickly take measures such as limited export to ensure their national food security. India's recent halt in wheat export is a good example. So let me show you more facts so that will be clear of how important the agricultural production is to us into a global society. So along with globalization, countries around the world have become net importer or net exporters. Only a few countries can export foods. So secondly, unlike the production of industrial products, so production of agricultural goods usually takes longer time. The figure in the middle part shows the crop calendar of winter wheat in Russia. So the songs usually start in autumn and the harvesting is in summer. And what's more, the Russian invasion of Ukraine occurred this year has already caused food insecurity, so affecting countries such as Yemen and African countries that depends on agricultural production imports. So besides corona issues, so Russia's invasion has worsened situations, making food insecurity and the poor poor. Well, most people often watch news about Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but rarely do they notice the impacts over to the trading and the market price. For a crop like wheat, the Russia is the leading exporter in the world, and the Ukraine is the sixth big exporter, which accounts for 1/3 of total amount of global wheat export. For maize, which is the important feed crops. So Ukraine's export amount accounts for over 10% of total amount of world maize export. For NPK, 3 major fertilizer. So Russia separately accounts for around 20% of the world fertilizer export. So these numbers provide important clues for us to understand the Thursday impacts of war to the markets. For most people, stabilized food prices or global food prices are desirable, but like other commodities, they can be affected by various risks and change over time. So let me show you more information about these key risk factors. One example is political risk. The Russia invasion can affect supply and push global market prices up. So in addition to that point, environmental risks such as climate change can also affect production stability. So moreover, economic risks such as currency strength relative to the US dollar can also affect the export and productions. So moreover, the impact of increases in energy costs can increase production prices and market price. So if you look at the cereal crop for future prices in this figure, so we can find all of them, corn, wheat, and rice jump significantly after 2022. So this part, and this part. So let me show you more information about the food price index. So the figure illustrates, they all show the prices make new highs for different commodity, especially for vegetable oil and meat. So given the condition of global society, you may want to know more information about Japan. So you may want to know what's happening now in Japan and the situation. So Japan, compared to other developed countries, have the lowest self-sufficiency rate. So further self-sufficiency rate is even lower, which has been kept at around 25% this year. For the rice commodity, so its self-sufficiency rate has been kept about 95% as a national strategy. So despite the government's political efforts, domestic demand for rice this year has decreased by 80,000 tons annually. So such a result is related to the westernization of diet in Japan. So different from the past, so many people nowadays prefer to consume meat and fats. So increased demand for meat and oil require more consumption and supply of feed crop, such as maize. Since demand for feed crop cannot be met by domestic supply, approximately 90% of feed grain are imported from overseas each year. So to increase self-sufficiency rate and to reduce the possible risks of food insecurity, the Japanese government recently launched a new program called Feed Rice Production Subsidy Program. The subsidy of feed rice production is set higher than those for other grains. So you might wonder why feed rice production is purposely promoted. Well, so there are several reasons. One of the reasons is geographic condition in Japan. So land in general are not suitable for large production like feed crop, large production of feed crop like maize, but is suitable for producing feed rice. So secondly, feed rice itself can be utilized as food when there are shortages of food. Thus, promoting feed rice production has no conflict with the targets of increasing food self-sufficiency rate. At any time, so farmers are the key stakeholder in making the final decision of feeding rice productions. So their reaction determines the success or failure of the policy. So analyzing their thinking logic, responsive to environmental and socioeconomic changes, especially in the post-corona society, is extremely meaningful. So let me show you some recent research findings. So through data analysis, it has been noticed that more than 50% of farmers in the Kanto region plan to reduce or stop rice productions. So comparatively speaking, the younger farmers are more likely to do so. So out of 52% farmers who reduce or stop rice production, 43 of them chose not to produce feed rice. The result in 22.6% of total rice-related farmers live in the agriculture sectors. This is a significant important sign that indicate insufficient policy response. So something important is not taken into consideration in the current policy. So it has been noticed that farmers fear towards several types of risks, such as climate change. So this figure showed it. And I'm still actually analyzing data now, and hopefully to provide you an overall image soon. But in general, so what I can say is that making farmers remain in the agriculture sector require income security. So government needs to provide additional support to cover the loss from those risks. So this presentation is a short introduction of my current research. If you have any questions, so feel free to ask me. And thank you for listening. So about the information is about today's presentation.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Lee, for your excellent presentation on food security issues. We will wish to have comment session and Q&A session later. Can we move on to the second speaker and third speaker, and then let us return back to your commenting session? Will that be all right?
Of course. Thank you so much.
Okay, so thank you so much, Dr. Lee. All right, so let us move on to the next speaker. So we wish to invite Dr. Xiaofang Zhang from Chiba University. She quite recently got doctorated, and then her topic is international cooperation and environmental policy making. Their linkages. So Dr. Zhang, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for inviting me here. Actually, today is my first English presentation, so I'm very nervous, but I will do my best. And firstly, I will share my screen first. Please wait a moment. Okay, can you see that? Okay, thank you. Okay. As you can see, my topic for today is international cooperation in climate change toward post-COVID-19. And here is, as Professor Ishido introduced, my name is Xiaofang Zhang, and I am a research fellow at Chiba University. And I changed my title. Here is today's topic. And at first, I want to say some background of my topic today. First, after the Industrial Revolution, the concentrate of greenhouse gas increased sharply due to increased fossil fuel consumptions and the directs in forest area due to human production activities. Now, global warming is one of the most demanding environmental problems. Due to the COVID-19 economic crisis, the world carbon dioxide, the CO2 emissions in 2020 have reduced by 7% compared to 2019. It was good news for solving global warming, but it was just a short-term reduction. If the economic activity recovered before COVID-19, CO2 emissions will return too. As all human beings are perpetrators and victims of global warming, international cooperation is indispensable for solving global warming. However, building an effective and fair international framework is not easy. Sorry. At this slide, I show what I will proceed with the 5 part of discussion. And in part 1, I will talk a bit about the relationship between greenhouse gas and global warming. The constant greenhouse gas on the Earth keeps the temperature suitable for several of living things. If there is no greenhouse gas on Earth, the average temperature is thought to be around minus 19 degrees. After the Industrial Revolution, a large amount of greenhouse gas has been emitted because of economic activities, and the average temperature of the Earth has been rising. According to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, TIC's report, human influence on global warming is unequivocal. The figure on this slide shows us almost 65% of the CO2 emissions come from fossil fuels we use, such as coal, oil, gas, and industrial processes. So we can know that CO2 is emitted directly or indirectly by human activities. Due to the COVID-19 economic crisis, the world CO2 emission in 2020 have reduced by 7% compared to 2019. COVID-19 economic crisis proves that carbon emissions are closely related to economic activities. As we can't stop developing the economy to reduce CO2 emissions. So if the economic activity level recovered before COVID-19, CO2 emission will return off more than before COVID-19. We need to find a way to balance the environment and the economy as earlier as possible. By the way, have you ever thought about why do we have to solve global warming and why international cooperation is indispensable to solve global warming? This table from IPCC may give us an answer. I'm sorry for putting a smaller table, but for easy understanding, I have summarized the table contents for 4 points on the right. And summarize the 4 points as all population are facing the negative effects of climate change. All of us need to get together to solve the global warming. Then the international cooperation is indispensable to solving global warming. Next, let's see what the keyword is to solving climate change by linking rights and applications in international cooperation. Equity as a principle is a key to solve the climate change by linking rights and applications. However, politics and economy are still considered above equity. I will show you 2 examples to explain it. These 2 examples are all from 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference, which held in England last year. The first one is about the coal pledge. More than 40 countries pledged to quit coal, but some of the world's biggest coal-dependent countries, such as China and the United States, didn't sign up. Another one is just 10 countries and regions participate in the international framework for oil and gas production phasing out. Why it's not easy to building effective international cooperation in climate change, even though the climate change has many negative impacts on human society. behavior economic theory may be helpful in understanding. Humans tend to perform myopic behavior that emphasize the present rather than the future due to psychological tendencies such as loss avoidance and studies core bias. The loss of environmental improvement is estimated to be larger than the benefit for environmental improvement. Such loss avoidance, which is a characteristic of human psychology, can be one factor that creates the inertia of postponing global warming countermeasures. Lack of action is also one of the factors for factors. For example, the governments of each country are facing many systemic social issues, such as economic inequality, income, and employment issues, not always giving the priority solving to global warming. These psychological tendencies inherent in humans hinder compliance with reduction targets. So to solve global warming, we should overcome the loss avoidance and the studies core bias. Next, I want to give two policy suggestions to overcome the loss avoidance and the studies core bias. First, to overcome loss avoidance, we can do grading emission incentives, such as an emission trading system, the ETS. I will explain how the ETS works. This figure shows marginal abilities. Sorry for my bad English. Ability cost when two companies are assumed to reduce emissions. 100 ton CO2 is amassed as a reduction targets for compares A and B. In the case of regulatory mass, both company A and company B should reduce even by 15 ton CO2. Due to the difference in technology level, company A can achieve the reduction target at a lower cost than company B, even though some emission is reduced. On the other hand, look at the case of the ETS, the emission of both path shift to the point where the reduced cost of the both parties are equals by utilizing the transactions. In the ETS case, company A reduced emissions 30 ton CO2 and company B reduced emission to 17 ton CO2. Under ETS case, company B can sell their 20 ton CO2 surplus emissions to company A. Compared to the master, the cost will be low for the area of M1 to M2 to M3. In short, in the ETS share, there are economic benefit for both company A and B. To overcome studies core bias, we can call attention such as emissions information provision. For example, assume requires the disclosure of a nation emissions information and progress. All countries are under pressures from the international community through the information provisions messed. And all this, this is my policies, two policies suggestion. And in the end, I want to say the international cooperation is indispensable for solving global warming, for the well-being of all and future general. We should be building effective and strong international cooperation post COVID-19. And at the same time, we must develop the economy and narrow economic inequality. That's all my presentations. Thank you to pay your attention. As this is my first English presentation, I'm looking for have some comments and easy questions from you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zhang, for your very first time English language presentation. And then I really think that you are really passionate about collaboration rather than conflict. So in the field of environmental degradation is taking place, how nations can collaborate, how humans can collaborate. So that has been your focus. So we wish to have time for Q&A later for Dr. Zhang to react. Right? So thank you so much for now. And then can we move on straight to our third speaker then? So our third speaker for today is Mr.Alfonso Torrero from Universidad Autónoma Metropolitana. Is that right? From Mexico.
That's right.
The opposite side of the globe. So thank you so much for your participation during your midnight time. We really appreciate your collaboration. So, okay, can we, I invite you now. Okay, and then the topic for his presentation is entering a post-COVID-19 scenario in Mexico. How can we fight for a fairer civil society? So that's his topic. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Once again, it's a big honor to be able to...
Can we, I don't know.
Do you hear me? No?
Yeah. Now
Okay. Thank you very much once again for the invitation. It's a big honor to present with a group of doctors. So great. And in a great symposium. Thank you very much. Okay, I just have shared my presentation. Do you see it?
Yes, very
yes. Okay, perfect. As Dr. Ishido said, I titled the presentation Entering a Post-COVID-19 Scenario in Mexico. How can we fight for a fairer civil society? As you can see, I put in a parenthesis the civil word because I will focus on what is happening to civil society in our country. They are having many limitations to work, and this is also related to fairness in our country. So before starting to talk about the post-COVID-19 scenario, I think that is very important to give a little of context of what happened in Mexico during the pandemic, because many of the situations are still taking place now. I believe that four main factors in a complex combination hindered the COVID-19 pandemic appropriate control. I think that the first one is the healthcare sector. Mexico is one of the countries that less invest in healthcare. So the WHO, the World Health Organization, recommends that countries should invest on less like 7% of their GDP in health, and Mexico invests like 4.53. So very low. And the results of this is a lack of adequate facilities, tools, health, materials, and medicines. As you can see in the middle image, there is a small strike of workers, of Mexican nurses, that are asking for better materials to work because they don't have the needed protection against the COVID-19. And well, the last result of this low health investment is that there was a high demand, like at the pandemic peak, more than 100 hospitals were crowded or were full, and many people could not get the necessary attention or could not be hospitalized when they needed tanks of oxygen, etc. Another factor that is not just from the pandemic context, but general in Mexico, is the economic poverty. More than 60% of the population of families lives with $5 a day. So the prices of things in Mexico are not, these $5 do not permit you to live well with and to maintain a family, of course. And many people also work in the informal sector. They have informal labors. This means also that they do not have social security, home security, etc. So during pandemic, they also had to work, and there was no new social welfare programs or any intervention done by the government to help these people. And in another statistics, an important statistics is that even when we were living in poverty, the effect of the pandemic made that 2.1 million jobs were lost from the beginning of the pandemic, 2020, to the end of 2021. As you can see in the images, these are common images of Mexican people, merchants, sellers of any product you can imagine. Another factor that hindered the appropriate control of the pandemic were the presidential decisions. Since the beginning of the pandemic, our president in one of his programs, daily programs called La Mañanera, that is like the morning news. Since the beginning of the pandemic, he said that it was not very severe, that it was not an invention, but that his doctor told him that it was better not to use a mask. So an important and influential figure also taking these decisions make it worsen the pandemic situation. As you see in these images, he went on visiting the countryside of Mexico, kissing little boys and girls. An important figure of the government, that is a health subsecretary, also said that the president was like immune to the virus. Another very bizarre situations that sounds like surreal, like the president in the last photo to the right, he has two stamps in his hands, and he says that these saints were going to protect him against COVID. But of course, governments and lack of infrastructure and economic resources were not the only problem during the pandemic. Many people did not follow the safety measures, and there were also anti-vax groups that made some small strikes, not like in the US, but well, they still misinformed many people. Having these four aspects during the pandemic, the government made some decisions in this context. They made some intermittent lockdowns, like services were closed, like non-essential services, I don't know, entertainment like the cinema or a bar or something, some other not essential places. And there was also the mandatory use of masks in closed places. The common health measures like sanitizing the places you were visiting, and a very popular marketing strategy that they use, that is a wordplay in Spanish called Susana Distancia. Susana is a name of a person, but also Susana is your healthy distance, something like that. So that was a way to try to make people be aware of taking a good distance away from others, not to be contagious or to catch the virus. So I will go fast here because I know the time is moving fast. So in general, during 2020, the coronavirus cases in Mexico went increasingly up. And the epidemic peak occurred during January 2021. And in these two graphics that I present here, in the above one, there is the percentage of people vaccinated, and in the lower one, the one below, is the number of diseases. So basically, I found that there is a relation. It is expected that when more people is vaccinated, there will be less deaths related to the COVID-19. There are small examples in September or in January 2022 that, for example, when the new Omicron variant was in Mexico, there was like a small increase in cases, or on September. Supposedly, what the health secretary of Mexico said is that the deaths were related to people not vaccinated. So coming back to the point of fairness in society, decisions made by government are limiting fairness in society, particularly in civil society. For example, NGOs, the president proposed and passed a law to cut funds previously given by the government. So all the taxes obtained and then distributed by the government were not given to NGOs. During the 2021, a new law was passed to limit the amount of funds that a society could get from citizens and corporations. And the idea behind, or the justification behind these political decisions, are that NGOs had led to corrupt activities, like what is called money laundering. Like many big enterprises gave money to civil society or NGOs, but this money was corrupted and so on. But he just had like 2 or 3 examples, and he took this decision and just by generalizing the cases. Anyway, during the pandemic, there were some cases in which civil society worked together and helped during the pandemic. So something that the government didn't do and that civil society was doing was gathering the basic food basket to give to people that lost their jobs, people in communities in poverty. And another one, for example, the one from Fundación NEMI, they donated many masks and other healthy materials to people that needed them. So post-COVID scenario in Mexico was like a gradual change. But maybe officially we can say that on April the 22nd of this year, mask usage was officially not mandatory in closed places. And maybe for many people, this was the post-COVID scenario. Mexican health sector also expressed that COVID was now endemic in the country. Like it was not such a big problem, a big virus that will kill you, or it was like a common flu. But as we see in the previous context, the government still limits the possible actions and decisions of NGOs. And decisions are taken, or seems to be centrally taken. That means that the president or the institutions and that the president, the governmental institution that the president is now favoring, are the ones that take decisions related to social welfare or other kind of welfare. This maybe underneath, I believe that, well, not that underneath, because clearly the president says like NGOs and the private sector, they are corrupt, useless, privileged. There seem to be, it seems that government, as I say, and its institutions are the only ones that should create, invest, and manage welfare programs, policies, and take political decisions. Okay, well, we are seeing a slow changes in the economic growth in Mexico. So all the services given before the pandemic are allowed to be offered now. But many organizations and small businesses, for example, closed during the pandemic and are not able to or do not have the resources to open again. And there are not governmental incentives for that. So government cannot solve everything as it says in the discourses. And I believe that an important, interesting factor that not just in Mexico happened is that hybrid jobs that society and organization learn from the hybrid jobs advantages. Okay, so some ideas, as we can see that the government is minimizing the civil society action, and it cannot fulfill population basic needs. I believe that a good way to have better power, have a better consolidation and representativity is to work and collaborate with other social actors. So civil society can get together with different organizations and social actors, and this has been seen to strengthen their representativity and decision-making. But how do we study these relations of collaborations? I believe that there are many cases of failures in these collaborations, and we tend to see the successes are the most common literature presented nowadays. But I believe that we should have a multidisciplinary view of these organizational networks. So first of all, studying this characteristic of the structure, the formality, the shared material, the common objectives of organizations. For example, when I speak about structure, let's imagine a part of a organigram that is not all the structure, but that represents how organizations are working. And imagine that two of them, like one is a very bureaucratic organization and the other is a very organic organization in which everybody is seen as equal. There are no defined roles. Well, what we need to understand what happened when these two organizations or three or more organizations work together. How and what structure is the one that is imposed, or how do they get into a negotiation, for example, in their structure. And also there are network studies approaches that, in the older ones that talk about the dependency of resources between two organizations to that makes them get together, or social network theories that try to study the interaction between actors in a big network, and the position of the actor. What does it implies for in this case the organization that is influencing a lot of other organizations? From neo-institutionalism, sociological neo-institutionalism, like understanding what happens with the values and the values taken for granted from one organization is not compatible with the values of other organization. So these theories can be, I believe, combined with topics of governance. For example, in practice, maybe, well, in theory, maybe a collaboration between between organizations in a network is participative because everyone is helping to establish a program. But we need to be very meticulous and to know what actors are in the planning or designing steps, what values or what interests are more privileged or are considered in this organizational network. For example, there are, like in the picture, group of minorities in Mexico that do not feel represented. And sometimes when they interact with other organizations and are forming part of them, some of their necessities fulfilled or are better, are strengthened with the help of the network. So I believe that studying in this multidisciplinary approach, the networks, will help to understand how it will be better for now civil society. It can help civil society to gain a place again, and to be able to have more representativity. And I think that the topics theoretically they are not incompatible. Like in organization network theory and in governance, in both studies, power or influence in the network is studied. Actors' particular agendas, interests, and hidden agendas sometimes are also part of what we need to study if we want to know how to make a more efficient, or a network that is more representative of minorities, of actors that are not being considered now by the government. And that's it. That's my presentation. These are the information sources.
Thank you so much, Mr. Alfonso Torrero, for your very balanced presentation, rich in anecdotes from Mexico, what has been happening in your country, especially during and after COVID-19. And then you also covered this issue of the importance of networking. So good type of networking, not so good type of work, networking. So governance comes into the picture. So what kind of networking could solve the potential failure and overcoming negative aspects from the COVID-19. So your presentation was very rich in both anecdotes and theoretical components. So thank you so much. So we wish to have, of course, invite you later for making further remarks. So thank you so much, three speakers for today. We would like to have you, after having two discussant presentations. So the first discussant for today is Professor Masaya Kobayashi from our Chiba University. He has his own, of course, academic background, which I think is a combination, mix of philosophy, politics, and psychology, right? Very wide-ranging, and he's very well known in his field. So he will definitely be specifying his own research viewpoint, and then from his own perspective, he will be kindly making some comments on each of the three presentations. So and then we will be having our second discussant, Dr. Takayuki Kawase, later. So I will be introducing him later. And then from the floor, we would like to have some, written remarks or comments for clarification or, Q and questioning. So if you have any clarificatory comments or questions, please type them into the chat line while the two discussants making their cases. So please utilize the chat line, and then please also direct your question or comments to one of the three speakers. All right. So we wish to now invite Professor Masaya Kobayashi. The floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much for a kind introduction, Professor Ishido. And thank you also for very good presentations of three speakers. So I would like to first briefly introduce my own theoretical effort in a project. And this is our book arising out of our project in the first term. And so in there, I wrote something about the concept of fairness, and I will briefly introduce the basic concept of myself. So let me share this one. Yes, this is coming from my presentations on norms and demonstrations of a fair society. Subtitle is Multidimensional Integrative Theory. Today's my speech is very brief, and so I will shorten my essence. And the point is, what is a fair society? This is the most important question in a project. I study political philosophy, so I approach this issue from a political philosophy, especially at first by John Rawls' liberalism. So Rawls is a well-known liberal political philosophy, and he wrote something about fairness. He thinks fairness, justice as fairness. And so I first researched his own theory on justice and fairness, and then I will develop my own theory of communitarian theory of fairness. I found Craig Carr's book on fairness, and this is very suggestive, I think. because this book, this blue book, this book is criticizes, for example, Rawls' theory and Kantian theory of fairness, and he presented a new theory, a different concept of justice. This theory is similar to communitarian concept. So I think his theory is communitarian theory of fairness, which emphasizes the importance ethical factor related to fairness. So I think these efforts, including Rawls' theory and Carr's theory, are also important. So I push forward the four-dimensional theory of justice. That is, first dimension is a law-abiding factor. Second dimension is equity related to equality. Third dimension is ethical fairness related to squareness and uprightness. Fourth theory is reciprocity relating to fairness, welfare. So I presented this theory as this diagram, and also such a diagram and figure. I cut or shortened my presentation or explanation of these diagram and figure, but these indicate there are four dimensions of fairness. And we have to these four factors when we think of fairness. This can lead to comprehensive theory of fairness, I think. And so I think this one is my own theoretical effort now. And so I also am trying to verify or demonstrate experimentally the theory of fairness, because most philosophers don't deal with empirical analysis, but I would like to develop empirical analysis on the basis of political philosophy. So I think this can lead to a comprehensive fair society, and this can be very suggestive. For example, when we face the difficulty or problems of COVID-19. This is a very brief outline of my own theoretical and empirical efforts of our project. Then I would like to make some questions to three very good speakers today. Actually, the first speaker, Dr. Lee, is one of my very close colleagues. And so she and I wrote an article in this book. So my first question to Dr. Lee is how research is very suggestive to the today's today's difficult problem of climate change. And so she suggested something about the governmental new policy, but I'd like to ask her about what is the most effective policy from her own point of view on the basis of her research. This is my first question. The second question is her presentation today has not so much related to fairness, but actually I know that she has interest with fair or a fair society. So may I ask you to make more explanation the relation between your own research and a fair society? These are the questions to first presentation. And the second speaker, Dr. Xiang, I'm very sympathetic her orientation toward international cooperation. And so my question to her is how we can achieve this goal, and should we have a policy approach or ethical approach, or some kind of approach on the basis of civil efforts? This is the question to the second presentation. And thank you for the third presentation by Alfonso Torrero. I'm very sympathetic and I am very interested in Mexican case. And actually, I'm very sympathetic to your orientation toward multidimensional studies, especially approaches in organizational networks, because I study public philosophy. The project on public philosophy, especially in Japan, emphasizes the importance of a civil society, including NPO, NGO, and this we think are related to the concept of public common rather than government. And we think this is very important factor in conceiving present society. But my question to you is that how does your orientation relate with the serious problem in the COVID-19 in Mexico? I understand that Mexican case and Mexican president does not value the civil society rights. This orientation are the results of COVID-19, or this is the result of president's own ideological view. This is my the question to the third presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Kobayashi, for your really comprehensive comments, as well as remarks on your own specialization. Thank you very much. So moving on, and then next, our next discussant is Dr. Takayuki Kawase from Chiba University. So we have so many colleagues from Chiba University today. He is a young, promising scholar, I would say, specializing in law and philosophy. And then he recently published a very thick volume. So he is very knowledgeable on, of course, the linkage between philosophy and legal issues as applied to various situations, including COVID-19 related issues. So may we invite Dr. Takayuki Kawase for making his own comments and also asking some questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Ishido. Do you hear me?
Yes.
So actually, I'm very sorry that I don't prepare my own PowerPoint presentation today. So I just talk about fair society after Corona without PowerPoint slide. So I have always said pandemic situation have never changed our sense of fairness, but just revealed or uncovered our hidden or suppressed sense of unfairness. So I think COVID-19 is a good trigger to find problems of our society. Thanks to pandemic situation, we could find a lot of serious problems which were previously concealed. At the early stage of pandemics, many Japanese people criticized politicians or government itself, and the politicians who visited, for example, an expensive restaurant during soft or informal lockdown. So technically saying it was not lockdown, but actually we had the same kind of things. And now someone in Japan, someone criticized people who enjoy leisure activities or travels. In both cases, I think the reason of such kind of criticism is that such leisure activities are dangerous in these COVID situations. But I think the true reasons are hidden in the different places. I guess they criticize such activities because they think it is unfair. Frankly saying, they are jealous or envious. This issue is not to do with COVID at all. This is the issue of fairness itself. Before Corona, lots of such kind of unfairness in society are hidden, or at least people didn't care so much about that. But because of Corona, people became more and more irritated or sensitive to these unfairness. However, such unfairness has always existed since far before the pandemic situation started in Japan. So COVID is just a trigger of people becoming unfairness sensitive. And the issue is the issue is not to do with COVID, but people use the rhetoric of quarantine when they criticize social activities, saying it is very selfish to enjoy leisure activities during emergency situation. Probably they consider quarantine is the strongest or the perfect public reason. But I think it is slightly hypocrite, because their true reason is completely different. If they said it is unfair because they don't have the same chance to enjoy such kind of leisure activities, I would totally understand. And I would not agree, but at least I would understand the meaning of that criticism. But actually, they use the rhetoric of quarantine. So I think it is kind of hypocrite. In the literatures of contemporary theories of justice that Professor Kobayashi explained, John Rawls and many other liberals think about individuals who are indifferent or independent from each other, so they don't care what the other people doing. And on the other hand, Ronald Dworkin and other egalitarians think about individuals who are caring about other people doing, and sometimes jealous about other people. So egalitarians take external preferences important, and the liberals take it not important. So in general. Anyway, when the society is filled up with such kind of envy or jealousy or sense of unfairness, how can we justify our legitimate rights and interests? How can we persuade jealous people that this is not unfair privilege, but legitimate interests? One strategy may be to give up persuading others and hide such kind of rights or interests, even if they are completely legitimate one. By keeping them inside the secret, we can avoid making people angry. By stopping showing off the gorgeous life we enjoy, we can prevent other people from attacking us. So, in such societies, the establishment social class would be a kind of secret society. And in my opinion, this is a dangerous crisis of the integration of society or stability of society. And such a cynical strategy might make the society unstable and fragile. On the other hand, the second strategy is to appeal to public reasons, what the John Rawls explains, and keep going to persuade others. In the society of fragmentation or the archipelago of gated communities, it is very difficult to share public reasons. I think reason is not something transcendental. It is not something independent from anyone's opinion. So in my opinion, the reason is not something metaphysical, but specific to the particular context. So in my opinion, reason is something local, relative to our cultures, opinions, or sense of fairness. So I accept there are always some fragmentation of reasons or the division of the ideas in our world. However, I hope there is at least minimum level of shared sense of reasons in our society in order to achieve the public policies on behalf of our social stability and justice. So this is all of my own opinion, and I'm going to the next part, the questions or comments to today's presenters. I think all of today's presenters showed their own perspectives for after Corona society. For example, food policies and environmental problems are very important issues. Therefore, they are not the matter. They should not be the matter only during pandemic's time. And I think the essence or the basic philosophy of our policies about these issues should not be changed because of the pandemics. So the COVID-19 should not be the reason to change our philosophy. So my question to Dr. Xiang is that, so food is something to do with human basic needs. So if we don't eat, we must die. So it's very, very important and basic needs of ourselves. So it's the most typical topic of the global justice, in my opinion. And my question for you is that, what do you think about the possibility of the protectionist food policy successful in our global society? I think a lot of Japanese people are food nationalists, in my opinion, and choosing Japanese products in supermarket. Probably it depends on the personality of us, but and I think the situation is very different in the different countries. But I think at least in Japan, the protectionist idea about food is very, very strong. So if you have something about this tendency, please tell me about that. And the question to Dr. Xiang is quite opposite to the question to the Dr. Lee. So that, what do you think about the possibility of global cooperation about environmental issues successful? So I asked a question to Dr. Lee about the protectionist idea, and I asked the question to Dr. Xiang about the globalist idea about the environmental problem, because I am a little bit pessimistic about the sharing the same idea on environmental issues in all over the world, at least now, because different countries have different ideas about economics and the value of environmental issues. So what do you think is the most important thing for us to achieve global collaboration about environmental issues? So this is the question to Dr. Xiang. And next, the question to Mr. Alfonso Torrero. My question is very basic and very general one, besides of pandemic issues. I am very interested in the difference and the common things between Japan and Latin American countries such as Mexico, because Japan and Mexico must share something or a lot of things. Both of us are very close to Anglo-American civilizations, which is the superpower and the mainstream of contemporary world in practice and in theory. But at the same time, Japan and Mexico are still keeping something very different from America. So I found we can share something very important, and I think we should research what is this something important. And my question is very basic one. What is the most fundamental or basic philosophical idea of Mexico? Probably in America, it is the personal freedom. And in Japan, it is harmony of society. So what is it in Mexico? This is my question for you. And this is all of my comments today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kawase, for your very balanced and comprehensive review on your own topic, and also for making comments on the three speakers. Right. So I hope we're moving along on in terms of timeline. So let us invite the three speakers one by one. Would that be all right to make some feedback comments? So first, Dr. Xiang Li, can you please make your own feedback comments, please?
Oh, sure. Thank you so much for giving me wonderful comments. So first, I'd like to respond to Professor Kobayashi's comments. It might be better for me to answer the second question. The first is easier for me to answer. So how does my research related to the fair society? Okay, which is the theme of this project? So, well, this research basically focuses on the food security and the measure to increase the overall supply of foods in Japan and at the global level. So, for example, if people at any time, no matter is poor or the rich, can access to the food, so it means it's a fair opportunity for all to access to the food. So my research focused more to the solution or the strategy the government or the policy can use or to utilize to change farmers' mind from reducing rice production to continuously produce rice. So if the government policy works well and can change farmers' minds efficiently, so that means the national self-sufficiency rate in Japan can increase in the long-term scale. So in that term, so fairness can be achieved because the more the food can be produced, the cheaper the price itself. So that means even the poor can access to the foods easily. So maybe in that perspective, my research can answer the questions of how to achieve the fairness society. And to the first question, I'm not sure if I get your point. I think you try to ask me the thing the government can do to solve the issues. So, well, I just introduce some solution or some measures the government can do, but in reality, so through data analysis of my current research, I actually found there are positive sides of corona issues to the farmers. So for many cases, there are positive side and negative sides. Although the rice production decreases in some scenario, in some cases like in country region, but feed rice production increases as well. So that means in some scenario, the government actually works, but in some scenario, it doesn't work. So my job right now is to find the best solution or to maximize the benefits of farmers and the and the people of the society. So to find the best way to maximize the will or the fairness of farmers. So the policy itself can be a good tool if the government can use as well. But in some scenario, if it does not account for the necessary parameter that farmer actually care, so it might not work. So I'm trying to find out the shortage of those issues and also try to find the good points of the current policy. So did I answer your questions? I'm not sure if I really did well or not. And for Dr. Kawase's comments, so let me answer your questions now. You talk about the protection issues. So probably you want me to explain, so what can the success of policy itself? If people do not eat, they will die. You talk about that point. So, so actually, I do agree with your point that the pandemic has increased the unfairness among people. So, so can you repeat the question one more time? I'm so sorry.
All right.
So, I try to catch your point. Yes.
Actually, I try to ask a question about the possibility of the protectionist idea of the food policy success. So I think, at least in Japan, a lot of people want to eat the local food, the food produced around us. But I think probably a lot of people in foreign countries outside Japan probably have a different idea about that. So the free trade policy. So yeah, so actually, so which is more plausible idea in our current world?
Yes, I think I get your point. Oh, thank you so much. So, well, so if Japan wants more people to consume Japanese foods, the best idea is to increase self-sufficiency rate. So to increase the supply, domestic supply, and to decrease the market price, because people cares about the price. The cheaper the price, the better. More people will consume. So even I go to the markets, sometimes I compare the prices. So if product A is cheaper, so probably, so even that is produced in other countries like the US, so I might choose that one. So that's the basic idea for most people, I think. So for production side, which is also related to my current research. So I'm trying to think about the solution or measure the government can do to increase the overall national national supply, especially the rice, because rice is the main food in Japan, and which is critically important to people if the nation want to ensure is food security. So to reduce the impacts of food insecurity, so that's the only way I can think, because countries like the United States and Australia, so those countries usually have a self-sufficiency rate exceeding 100%. So, but comparatively, Japan only has the rate around 37%. So that means we must change, otherwise, so we'll be impacted. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I think it's very interesting that Japan, such a very strongly food nationalist country, achieved such a low food supply, the self-supply percentage. So it's, I think, very interesting paradox of that. So thank you, but thank you anyway.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Xiang Li and Dr. Kawase for your exchange of viewpoints and ideas. Right. Okay. So can we then move on to Dr. Xiaofang's feedback comment, please? Thank you.
At first, my answer to Professor Kobayashi, how to achieve our goals. I think to achieve our reduce target or fill the global warming, we can do many things. As I introduced, the 65% CO2 emissions from the fossil fuel we use. In my opinions, promote the transformation of energy consumption structures is very important. For example, we can promote introduction more renewable energy. Or use EV cars. And the next, my answer for Dr. Kawase. I'm very grateful for your opinions. The different countries have their own the different way to reduce or solve the global warming. And the very important thing is to respect each other's opinion and issue our promise to reduce the emission is very important. I'm very sorry for my bad English. I hope I give a right answer to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Actually, respecting each other's idea is something that I really agree. So I totally agree of that. But I think, so I said the different country has different idea about environmental issues. So for example, actually I forgot what thing it was, but President Putin said the global warming is very good thing because Russia will be warm. So, and if I were Prime Minister of Japan, I would not have any confidence to persuade such kind of opinion. So, of course, respecting other opinion is very good thing, and I totally agree with that. But on the other hand, there must be some limitation to that tolerance. So. Yes, so if you have something, some opinion about that, so please tell me. So let me explain my the meaning of my question. My question is: Do you think it is possible to achieve a global agreement about environmental issues such as global warming? Is it possible to agree all over the world?
It's very difficult.
I am a little bit pessimistic. I hope we can do that. But I think it is very difficult.
Yes, I am very agree with you. I think it's difficult to achieve it, but we know it's difficult. But it's very important to know why we couldn't achieve it. So if you know the reason of why we couldn't achieve it, you can think any idea to let it go on. Yes.
Yes, that is exactly what I said at the last part of my comment. So what do you think is the most important thing for us to achieve global collaboration? So we should search for the reasons that we cannot achieve the agreement. So there must be some reason that we cannot agree with each other. So I think this is the most important thing for us. Well, thanks.
Actually,
Yes,
yes. Actually, this issue is quite closely related to my question. And so my question is how is this possible? But actually, I believe it's very difficult to try to do is the best effort. I have no answer to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, Zhang, thank you so much for your remarks and in your effort. Yeah, so making efforts to try to solve, to try to respond. This is very important, I think, globally speaking. So, okay, so maybe then invite Mr. Alfonso Torrero for making your own feedback comment. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Thank you for the questions. And first to Dr. Kobayashi, I think that it was very clear that since this presidential term started, the president's ideas to minimize the NGOs and the civil society in general was little by little more clear. Like since 2019, he began with discourses speaking about the corruption in civil society, and then there were the passing some laws that limit the resources given to civil society. So I think yeah, it is a presidential, or maybe not presidential, of this government in general idea that the civil society is not as important or should not be as important. I think that behind all of this, well, there is a long history in Mexico. Like the country is the first time that has a left-wing president, but he's very autocratic and he has a politic to argue with me or against me. So it's difficult, for example, also for journalists. They are very criticized when they show something that is not convenient for government. And Mexico is a very dangerous place for journalists. The country with more
Sorry, I can't hear.
Oh, the connection, is there?
Yeah, there's some problem.
Oh, okay. Hello, Mr. Torrero. Is the connection okay? Well, here in Japan, we don't hear your voice, Mr. Alfonso. Okay, so it looks there is some kind of a connection problem. Okay, so if right, so I hope he will be returning back. So while waiting, if there is any other comments or issues, please type them into the chat line, because we've got some time for making another round if the speakers are not too tired. So if there are any comments, or I mean just by writing or maybe orally, if you could raise your hand, or I mean show up, switch on your camera, and then you can ask your question to any one of the three speakers. Yeah, that's also fine. Any comments or question? Yeah, please, Dr.
Actually, it is partly a joke of that, but actually, I want to know something about the freedom of expression in Mexico. Are there any censorship or internet censorship?
Maybe. I'm sorry. No, I'm connected with my cell phone now because my house connection just broke. But I mean, I'm not trying to be like paranoid or just think that the actual government is the worst, because the other governments were also very corrupt and had many bad practices. So I believe that that yes, in this presidential term with this government, they have a very particular agenda to work, and they consider that Mexico should, for example, take more central and conservative conservative decisions in privatizing, for example, in privatizing the resources, the Mexican resources like the lithium or the energy. And I don't know, I believe that it's a very hermetic position of a government, not to let the critics to take part in what is happening in the context problems. That's what I believe. And yes, this in just to resume my point, yes, this is a situation of this new government. They are taking resources and limiting the way in which civil society work.
Okay, can I say something? So,
Yes.
Yeah, I understand your explanation of presidential orientation. So my question is, what is the relation between the presidential orientation and the effect of the government's policy on COVID-19? For example, some country like Brazil and America in the Trump administration adopted a neoliberal or libertarian policy. I think this policy did not succeed because there are plenty of COVID-19 problem under these governments. So I now learned that your country adopted a presidential orientation which does not value the civil society. So such orientation has some effective effects on the results of the policy of COVID-19, because you said that vaccination is positive effects. And so what's the relation between your country's policy and the effect of the policy on COVID-19?
Okay, I think it was not really like clear at the beginning, and at first I believe that at first, watching the news, the government and in the news given by the president, they say that COVID was not really a problem because they justify that just one in, I don't know, in 100 people having the virus will die, and they say some data that was not really confirmed. Like they also didn't consider, for example, the problems that were occurring, or the pandemic occurrence in Europe, like the Italian tragedy and the quantity of the deaths there. And I believe that they try to justify later on first approach, they went into many phases, but at the end, I think that the president also promote the vaccination, or in sort of way, but at the beginning, that was the most important time when there were not vaccines. He took that how to say, that is attitude, this like not very responsible attitude, saying that the virus was nothing to worry about. So that's why I believe that during, well, not just his participation, but was one of the elements that led to so much deaths in Mexico.
Right, thanks.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Alfonso Torrero. And then, okay, please, anyone?
It's okay. Dr. Kawase asked, I didn't understand the question. I'm so sorry. Like, what is the fundamental idea of Mexico? In what sense are you talking about?
In philosophical sense. So, but it is not a very difficult meaning. But what is the basic idea of the country itself? For example, I said American government, American constitution, American people respect the freedom of persons, freedom of individuals so much. And in Japan, I think the people respect the value of the harmony of the society. And what is the most important things for Mexican people? So very, very general question. So very easy question, not very academic. So what is the most important thing for Mexican people?
Okay. I believe that as in many Latin American countries, it's like Mexico is very focused on being warm with others, and to have a proximity with other members of society. I believe a lot of that is in Mexico. Like
Actually,
sorry.
Go ahead.
Not really harmony in society, because I mean, I believe that sometimes it's very chaotic, everything that happens here, and people do not follow rules as in other countries. But I think that's something that characterizes the relations in the country, or what people deserve to be seen as a warm and welcoming person. I think that is a typical Mexican idea. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Actually, I had the theory of Samuel Huntington, the conflict of civilization, in my mind. So probably Latin American countries and Japan probably have something in common, but probably have something very different, in my opinion. So in that theory, Japan is very unique civilization. And actually, I don't know. I'm not sure, but it is true or not. But actually, I think at least Japan and Latin American country is the marginalized area of the Anglo-American civilization, in my opinion. So thanks anyway.
Okay. Like the influence of Anglo-American culture in both countries, or what do you mean by?
For example, actually, my major is law. So, and Japanese constitution is, I think, came from America. So actually, I think it is good thing. So because I basically support for the philosophy of the American Constitution. So, but anyway, the Constitution, the basic idea of Japanese government is came from America. So, but I think we still have a lot of things which is very different from America. For example, it is very a difficult thing, but recently we imported the judicial system from America. So we copied that, but it didn't work very well. So actually, Japanese constitutional idea, I think, is very good and work very well in Japanese society. But the judicial system, the criminal procedures, didn't work very well in Japan. So actually, we have a lot of common thing with America, but at the same time, we have the very different things from America. So this is my opinion about the relationship between Japan and America. And I guess Mexico must have the similar situation about the relation to America. So this is my guess.
Okay, I'm not sure. I think that Mexico has an aspirational approach to the U.S. Like so all the marketing, all the things that the U.S. does and has a better not lifestyle but life quality. It's like something aspirational for many people, and I'm not sure how much, for example, North American, well, American laws affected Mexican laws, but honestly, I'm not sure about that. I believe that what I know is that there is a lot of aspirational an interest in the American dream, in the so-called American dream by Mexicans. And yeah, that's a relation. And for other people, like in many countries of the world, North America is not seen as a very good country in some aspects. Like they are have like conquering tactics, and they just will do anything for your resources and things like that. So it depends on people, but in general, I believe it's the aspirational idea of the US.
Thank you. I think the biggest difference between Japan and Mexico is that Mexico is connected to America directly on the ground. So actually, there are serious issues about immigration, and which we don't have. So I think Japanese people don't have such kind of strong aspiration to America, at least not so strong as the Mexican people, I think. So this is, I think, the very big difference.
Yes, of course. Yes, and Mexicans are not as nationalist or appreciate their country as other countries, like, I don't know, European ones that have a very nationalistic position and so on. They are like more open. Mexicans are more open and just try to, I believe they just try to to be friendly with the world or something. Like everybody comes to Mexico without any difficulty. Even external politics did not block, for example, during the pandemic, and the flights to Mexico and things like that. It's like Mexico is very open to other countries, even when you speak about politics.
All right, thank you so much for your really elaborated explanation, Mr. Alfonso and Dr. Kawase.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All right, okay, we still have time, and I wish to make my own very brief comment as an economist. So these days I hear that food prices going up, and then there is no returning back. Never to the original point in terms of food and also in terms of energy. So that comes to into this environmental policy making issue. So and then reaching an agreement among different stakeholders. I mean, the networking is quite sometimes difficult, right? Regionally even. So globally it's even more difficult to reach an agreement. We sometimes hear the word okay, let us agree to disagree first, then there will not be any final battle. But what we see across the globe is that's not a feasible option. Agree to disagree in a peaceful manner. So that's why countries are fighting against countries, and then we never know what could be the fairness oriented viewpoint on how to solving this kind of antagonistic hostile situation. But definitely we need to think about the maximum principle, right? According to the philosopher John Rawls, maximizing the minimum standard, right? In terms of food security and environmental policy, the complementation between the government sector and civil society. So the worst case scenario should be avoided. That's what I also agree. I mean, it could be reached. I mean. To the some kind of a consensus, because the minimal the worst case scenario should definitely be solved, and then who can antagonize this? Of course, in your mindset, okay, as a politician or a country leader, okay, who cares about this worst case group of people? Yes, but at least if we are to agree to reach some kind of a consensus, then of course this maximum principle would apply to all each of these cases discussed in today's workshop. But of course, other philosophers might say, okay, trying to agree itself is some kind of a terrorized situation, right? So we are not coerced to make some kind of a global final agreement. I wish to take some point from that kind of remark. And so after all, it's difficult, right? But I should say this is a kickoff workshop. We cannot solve all these, conundrum, difficult questions. So at least we should, to the best of our knowledge and to the best of our intention, keep getting together online and also, offline. Then keep thinking, okay? Keep releasing what we think about this fairness. Although it's not reachable, at hand, near at hand sort of thing. Yes, we know it, we acknowledge it, but we still have plenty. For the sake of this project, we still have some time. Right, so let us keep thinking. All right, so that's my kind of like the kickoff type of remark. Thank you so much. So okay, we still have some time, but I don't see any typing in to the chat line. And so if there is anything from the audience today, yes, wish to welcome, but anything? If not, then we wish to move on to the final item, which is closing remarks from both Professor Jiro Mizushima and Professor Masaya Kobayashi. Would that be all right? Just a wrap-up remark from each of them. Right. Okay, so if there is no more specific comments or questions, let us move on to the final wrap-up session. So can we invite Professor Jiro Mizushima, please? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the presentations and comments. And today we had a very extensive and enthusiastic discussions. I enjoyed it very much. And it is worth to see that this is our kickoff symposium. So as Professor Ishido pointed out, this is the start of our discussions. But anyway, after after I heard the three presentations, I noticed that there is a common theme behind the three presentations. And I think that is the conflict or contrast between national framework and global perspective. National or patristic framework versus global international viewpoints. That is a very important contrast or underlying conflict. Professor Lee pointed out about the food supply. Yes, the self-sufficiency rate of rice is okay in Japan, but in general, self-sufficiency rate of food is very poor in Japan. In this case, some kind of protectionism or based on nationalism probably is not an evil, but it is in one sense necessary to be safe against the change of the world market, such as the outbreak of war. But in contrast to that good protectionism, Professor Dr. Xiang pointed out that if each state pursues their own goal, it is quite difficult to reach an agreement, and climate change would not be realized. Probably climate disaster might come. In this sense, we have to abandon our nationalistic viewpoints and we have to cooperate internationally. But as today's discussion shows, it is difficult to reach an agreement. And Professor Ishido pointed out, agree to disagree. Yes. But in any sense, I'm a political scientist and I study in European politics. In Europe, there is a new term for fair transition to carbon neutral. In this term, we see the word fair. What is fair? It means that the abolishment or if you abolish all fossil fuels, that is good for the climate, but it might damage other sections of the society. It is not fair. We have to consider many aspects of the things, climate or employment or other distribution, economy, and finance. So if we consider these various kinds of aspects, we can consider fair transition. In this sense, this agreement is the start of the fairness, because fairness is not equality, or equal distribution is not always fair distribution. In some countries or in other countries, there is a difference about what is right or what is equal. So we have to think about what is fairness, and we have to discuss and exchange our views. And this is the start of the fairness, I think. And about the presentation of Alfonso Torrero, thank you for the presentation from Mexico. And he also pointed out the president of populist movement. And populists are in general nationalistic and patriotistic, and they don't like the influence from outside. Probably the president of Mexico does not like the influence of global civil society in Mexico. He does not like the interference from outside. In this sense, nationalism works negatively for the civil society. It did damage the effect of COVID-19 during these years. So these three presentations showed us the positive side and negative side of nationalist framework and global framework. We cannot say which is right. Nationalism is evil and globalism is right. We can't say about it. However, what we can say at this moment is, I think we have to think globally, but at the same time, we have to take national context into consideration. Today, we got many lessons from the presentations and the discussions. Thank you, and until the next time.
Thank you very much, Professor Mizushima. So, Professor Kobayashi, any comment, please?
Thank you very much. Very interesting discussions. These discussions inspired me very much. So I'd like to say something about the inspiration there. First, as for the presentation of Dr. Lee, actually, I have some slide on our chapter. This is a chapter with Dr. Lee. In that chapter, we push forward the idea of environmental fairness, that is environmental compliance, environmental equity or equal equity, environmental ethical fairness, and environmental reciprocity. And as for the measures to cope with the issue, first, international regulations. Second, how to cope with socially vulnerable groups. Third, ethics of intergenerational fairness. Fourth, interstate and individual considerations of various factors. And we think that today's discussion, something have much common with these our arguments, and especially in the discussion as for the civilization push forward. Dr. Kawase remind me a very important issue, because I'm very interested in the issue of conflicts of civilization in my lectures on comparative politics. So obviously, I was very annoyed by the clash of civilization between Western countries and Islamic civilization. Now I feel that there are emerged a very serious inter-civilizational conflicts between Russia and Europe and other civilizational people. So this issue is very important and very, very serious in the contemporary world. And I think that this issue should be included in our theoretical frontiers or a research topic as for fairness. And as well as the environmental issue, there are the problem of the intergenerational and also global fairness. Obviously, as a political philosopher, we are very familiar with the concept of global justice. But I think global fairness has not so popularity in the contemporary academic world. So we have to explore the concept as well as global justice and also domestic justice and fairness. And my own research on the domestic context is related to the impact of fairness on well-being of people. In my experimental studies, I demonstrated the people's wellness, people's well-being has been influenced by the governmental policy related to fairness and justice. In that sense, justice and fairness is very important in tackling the issue of COVID-19. And also, I think these kind of intergenerational and also global fairness has very important factors in dealing with people around the world, especially in the context of clash of civilization. Actually, this is the first time I encountered this issue, so I'm very grateful for the present content today's discussion. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you so much, Professor Kobayashi. So yes, definitely let us jointly give our thanks to today's speakers and discussants by clapping our hands. Thank you very much. Right. Okay. So Dr. Kawase, please. Okay, and then okay, Dr. Zhang. All right. All right. And then okay. So briefly, each one of you, please. Okay, Dr. Kawase.
Oh, no. I'm just clap the hand. So not raise hands.
Okay. Sorry. I thought you raised your hand and all the others. Okay. So no one is actually raising hands. Okay. Thank you very much. So that's it for today. Thank you so much. And then we'll be getting together online on specific other topics. Including positive psychology, for example, right? And then that could be in July. Potentially. And then in September, in November, and also in February next year, we'll be getting together online. So please check out our website. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Dr. Zhang. Right. So let us get together. We are like online friends. Yes, can we say that? From different school or thought and from different countries. But this is the first step. And then we have achieved, our initial kickstart, occasion, right? Successfully, I believe. So thank you very much for your active participation to all of you. And then that's it for today. So until next time, see you. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much and have a nice day.
Thank you so much.